All right. Hey, good evening, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Tonight is still Saturday, August 3rd, 2024. This is your evening tropical update. We are now tracking Tropical Storm Debby, formerly potential Tropical Cyclone 4 and Tropical Depression 4, and Vest 97L. All of the things we've named it, it is now finally Tropical Storm Debby. The fourth named storm of the 2024 hurricane season is starting to advance northward towards Florida and will be making landfall what appears to be now Monday along the Big Bend of Florida, where significant and wide-reaching impacts are expected from Florida's peninsula north and eastward across parts of Georgia, South Carolina, and even North Carolina. This is going to be a major event over the next couple of days. Potential hurricane landfall now, and also very heavy rain to come. So let's go ahead and show you the latest from the National Hurricane Center 8 p.m. intermediate advisory. Again, at 5 p.m., the biggest change was that the timing had slowed down a little bit. As we were talking about the last couple of days, we were bringing this into landfall late Sunday night and working our timing off that. But unfortunately, it still appears that Debby is not going to be able to get out of town so easily, and the storm is therefore going to move very slowly as it works ashore. We can see here the Hurricane Center has landfall now at 2 p.m. on Monday afternoon around the Big Bend of Florida and the Appalachia Bay, and then just kind of crawls along to the northeast over the next couple of days. 2 p.m. Tuesday, the storm has only made it to southeast Georgia. It hasn't even gotten offshore until Tuesday evening. On Wednesday at 2 p.m., the storm has only moved from just onshore of Georgia to just offshore of Georgia. That's maybe 100 miles in an entire 24-hour period, which is agonizingly slow. And then on Thursday, the storm is still lurking around the coast of South Carolina, and there's still significant movement within this pattern. The Hurricane Center is drawn it like this, but I mean, it could very easily wander in any sort of direction once it gets in this region on throughout much of next week. So we have a very significant flooding threat shaping up. Of course, the hurricane impact is going to be a big deal. Hurricane warnings are up this evening for parts of the Florida coastline. If you want to pause the video and see who's under what right now, but again, that hurricane warning in effect from the Swanee River to the Ockalochnee River, I think, if my Floridianness doesn't betray me, but that's what my guess is. But several watches and warnings in effect throughout the region. But the rainfall to come is going to be pretty nasty as well. So we're going to talk about all that coming up. Let's go ahead and focus a little bit on Debby this evening, and this is the satellite shot that's got a lot of people pretty concerned, and part of me is concerned as well. Debby's evening satellite look has that dreaded S shape. This is the center of the circulation right here, just to the west of the Florida Keys, and multiple spiral bands clearly rotating inward, and it has that kind of S shape to it. Developing hurricanes kind of have this big inflow one way, big inflow the other way, a nice core right here, and they often have that kind of shrimp or S look to them before they begin to quickly intensify. And Debby does have that look. Now, I'm still a bit optimistic in the sense that the vortex is still fairly broad. If you look at the low-level cloud pattern, there is some indication this isn't wrapping really strongly yet. The wraparound is pretty mild. Meaning that I think that this isn't these arrows, instead of like diving in towards the center like this, are sort of lazily moving towards the center, which means that the overall vorticity isn't particularly high yet, and this core hasn't consolidated. And we can kind of see this in the aircraft reconnaissance, both NOAA and the Air Force Reserve hurricane hunters out there this evening. This is the current NOAA pass to the storm, and clearly shows that we have a core right here. And not very impressive winds. I mean, nothing alarming yet. And I don't want to downplay this, but generally still seeing winds around 35 knots from SFMR. It seems like reliable SFMR readings, and flight level winds are very low as well. And this is probably a low level fix, but still no major surprises as of yet. And I think as quote scary as this storm looks, it's going to take some time for this to intensify. So I'm usually the guy that's on the other side of this argument, screaming run for the hills. But in this case, I'm still a tad optimistic that the Hurricane Center forecast for intensity is going to line up to some degree. I'm again could still be wrong here, but as the Hurricane Center notes in their evening discussion, they are expecting that first 12 to 24 hours to be slow as far as intensification is concerned, and then pick up closer to land where they are still forecasting a hurricane. So this is still going to be a hurricane at landfall. People are looking at this satellite tonight and going, oh man, that's going to be a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or something. I'm hoping that we're not going down that road, but I could be wrong on that. We'll have to see how it plays out. But infrared satellite presentation does show that it is getting better organized. We're seeing some vertical hot towers forming near the center. But I've seen this pattern before in some other storms, and when you have this kind of environment everywhere, sometimes it takes a while to get the thunderstorms to really focus where they need to focus. So we'll see how fast Debby can get that organizational process going, but it's going to take some time for the storm to do that. So we'll see how that plays out. General steering pattern and thoughts have not changed. We still have the storm located down here on this map. This is a 500 millibar chart showing you the steering flow that's going to be coaxing the storm along. The weak trough still over the southeast U.S. here this evening, but this trough quickly lifting north and away, jet stream cutting it off. And as we go into even Monday morning on the GFS, and this has actually got the storm too far ahead. The GFS already has it making landfall, but we know that's probably going to be 6 or 8 hours behind. So the storm likely more back here in real life, well away from any remnants of that trough at this point. This is way too far of a distance to get any kind of coaxing for the storm to go much further north. So while there'll be some weakness in the subtropical ridge right here, it will not be much. And as the storm begins to continue to drift northeastward, it will simply run out of steering flow. And as we work into Tuesday and Wednesday, you just have these two competing high pressures on both ends, and the steering flow is basically a net zero, and the storm just kind of stalls near the southeast U.S. coast. GFS and Euro both show this well. We can see the storm coming up on the European model. And again, whenever you see these greens on the 700 or 300 millibar chart here that we're showing you over on Tropical Tidbits, you have to know that that's deep tropical moisture being fed up, and look at the pipeline of deep tropical moisture coming up across Florida and already starting on the Carolinas. This will be its own little frontal boundary in itself. So you guys are going to get some rainfall before the storm even hits Florida, and then it's going to continue into next week. But look at the rainfall to come, or the tropical moisture, how long it sits. The storm crawls across, South Georgia, northern Florida on this particular model run, and then just stalls for days. We see this stalling through Thursday even, and then finally maybe into Friday, Saturday, it starts to move. GFS shows similar but a little bit different. It has the storm kind of wandering back offshore, moving back towards Georgia. I mean, all those solutions are possible, but the bottom line is, as this hurricane makes landfall, and as a hurricane, on these models, then it just crawls along for a couple of days. Track models show this as well. The evening ensemble runs all kind of showing that squish spider look once again around the southeast coast, around Georgia, South Carolina's coast. And folks, the rainfall event shaping up is pretty big. Intensity models tonight are holding pretty steady. HWRF still calling about 983 millibars at landfall. Remember, that pressure is kind of indicative of how strong the storm is. So a pressure closer to 1,000 would be pretty weak, and a pressure closer to 980 is like category 1. And then the lower the pressure, the stronger the storm. But the intensity models, all the regional ones, HWRF, HMON, HFAS, all pretty much holding in the 980s, and they have been throughout the day today. And this kind of coincides with the Hurricane Center's forecast intensity, and the intensity models are all still kind of calling that upper tropical storm low-end hurricane potentials. So if this thing is going to get past, if it's going to really blow past expectations, it's going to have to buck pretty much everything we have telling us otherwise right now. And it's happened before, and it will happen again. But that's, if the HWRF was calling like 960 something, I would be like, yeah, okay, alarm bells, we've got a problem. But so far, it's not. So hopefully that trend continues. Looking at some of the other stuff here tonight, going towards impacts. Again, we talked about Jacksonville in a regional update on the Facebook page. We'll do that again today. Again, like I told you guys on that, the best thing I told you is from the today, that post remains valid, except we're going to need more rainfall and slower timing. And that slower forward speed, meaning rainfall totals continue to go up. Evening rainfall prediction from the National Hurricane Center via the Weather Prediction Center showing a maximum rainfall total 12 to 16 inches and possible pockets of more than 16 inches of rain along parts of the Georgia and South Carolina coastline. And Florida can still expect to see those rainfall totals anywhere from 4 to 10 inches, depending on where you are. It looks like a swath from Tallahassee to about the 301 corridor. Looks like they're going to get 8 to 12. Some parts of northern Jacksonville and Nassau County may also see 8 to 12, and then folks further south more in that 6 to 8 inch range. This is enough rain to cause some pretty significant widespread flooding. The greatest flash flood risk from the WPC, they're already in their moderate category, which is 3 out of 4, and this is going to be a very widespread flooding rainfall event, and I would be very surprised if by tomorrow or even into Monday, parts of Charleston, Savanah, Beaufort, and maybe even a little bit further south and more inland go to that high risk as we work into the next couple of days. And as we've talked about too, tornadoes are going to be a big deal. SPC already has tornado corridors set for tomorrow and Monday, and that will probably last into Tuesday as well. I think the tornado threat will ramp down as we get into like Tuesday night through like Thursday, Friday, where it's just more of a rainfall thing. But there's going to be some heavy tropical convective bands that move through Florida starting tomorrow, especially for South and West Florida, and then getting into Northeast Florida on Monday and so on. And these are going to have those stronger winds, the heavier downpours, and the potential for tornadoes. So all that on the menu, guys. And that's kind of the latest we've got tonight. Again, Debby looking impressive visually, but under the hood, there's a lot of work to be done for this to really get going. We think it will. We think it'll landfall as a hurricane, and then we expect it to pretty much crawl through the work week and dump a tremendous amount of rain. And I don't want anybody along that South Carolina or Georgia coastline to think, well, just a tropical storm. It's going to be a hurricane in Florida, no big deal. The rainfall event that could potentially shape up here is some of the worst y'all maybe had in decades. I'm struggling to think of a rainfall event in this region that would rival this in the recent memory. I'd have to really think about it, but there's not many. So we're going to have more to come. We'll have more on the Facebook page, a new video in the morning. We'll have updates tonight, tomorrow, and throughout landfall and throughout the week, guys. So that's what I got for you tonight. As always, thanks for watching, and have a good one.